I don't know that that's realistic. Particularly that we started 17 minutes late. I'm like, I don't think Mercury's in retrograde, but I want to blame something because I'm like, well, what's going on with my computer? Why can't I get my stuff together? I need production.
Yes, production.
Make sure my stuff is working. Okay, Dr. McCray, what archive are you in? Broadcasting live, showing us all up.
Oh, showing you up? Huh? No, this is a part of the work that I do, and it's. I don't want to say it's going to be a surprise.
Oh,
This project that I'm working on.
okay. All
Yes.
right. We'll talk later.
Okay.
I was actually looking through some archives, looking at pictures and stuff. So yeah. Okay, so I don't even feel like we need to be formal. Um, so two things I want to bring up. I know we want to talk about joy and Jamila, I know you got to go a little bit early today. I just want to get actually both of your thoughts as it relates to two things going on. I mean, the big thing, obviously, that's been catching the news is the whole situation between Will Smith and Chris Rock, as it relates to Chris Rock's comments to Jada Pinkett. But before we even get to that, I'm wondering your thoughts or how you were able to hold on to a space of joy the week before as all of the racist and misogynistic attacks against Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. So what'd y'all do with that? Go, Estee.
Well,
So why you looking?
Ah, because I don't know if my honest reaction is TV ready. I think that I had to just disconnect. It was very triggering. And the racism was I mean, not new, or unexpected, but just ludicrous as racism is, but in a way that was particularly targeted and intentional. And so I think I just couldn't watch it. I tried, but I couldn't watch it, and I didn't even really try to like sit through it, which is the other thing that I just can't imagine being in her shoes because I think it lasted 11 or 12 hours each day, and it was 4 days. But I was very grateful for the way that Senator Cory Booker was intentional about using his time to give Judge Ketanji reprieve and affirmation. And I think that gave me some gratitude and some joy that we had some Black folks in that space to be strategic with it. So if there was any salve, I appreciated that.
What about you, Jamila?
I really like what you said, Estee. I liked what Cory Booker did and said to intervene in that space. I actually didn't give it a lot of thought until, I don't know. Okay, so yeah, I was thinking about representation and the extent to which representation matters. I kept turning that over in my brain and thinking about not just Judge Brown Jackson's background in terms of her being, more than qualified for the position and all the hard work she put in, but what her politics might mean in my life as a Black woman, an individual Black woman, and the kinds of concessions we might have to make. I was thinking about all that in relationship to why, how much do we need in terms of representation? How much does representation matter? So I had to give a talk since the hearing, and I was greeted by one of my supervisors that I was just meeting in person for the first time. And he said, "Oh, Katanji, I've never met you in person." And I was like, "Wait, huh?
Your name
Oh,
ain't
no,
nowhere near Katanji.
And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm Kenja," and yeah. The names are a bit similar.
No, they're not.
No, they're not.
No,
There's
they're
no
not.
E in your name. There's no J in your name. That's not similar.
It's a K. That's
It
the
is.
thing that's similar.
Yeah, but if you're not, if you
So
are,
apple and ass are similar.
yeah, right. What'd you say?
I said so. Apple and ass are similar.
Yeah, if the ass is red and brown, yeah, maybe. Yeah, so because I saw her name, I was like, oh, because my family pronounces my name Kenji, right? So it's written on the page as Kenja, but if you ever go to a family event of mine, you'll hear everybody say Kenji, Kenji. They never say Kenja. No, and when they say Kenja, it's always so stilted sounding. They've always called me Kenji. And my sister-in-law's name is Katanga. And I was like, Katanji is a perfect mashup of Kenji and Katanga. So I have thought of the similarities. I think there is some similarity, especially if you are, let's just say, not of our community. And you're thinking, accomplished Black woman with a Black name that starts with K. Yeah, I mean, come on, let's be real. It probably is similar. It probably was similar to this dude, right? So I was like, oh yeah. And at first I was offended, right? And I was like,
you should have been.
You should have been offended.
Okay, all right, let me tell my story. Okay, at first I was offended, but then I was like, wait, if to be confused with this woman at this time, based on what I know about her, that's not a big insult. And so, I was wondering, was he categorizing me as, a Black woman with a K name, a Black sounding K name, or was he saying accomplished, eminently accomplished Black woman with a K name? I'll take that. So yeah, that's how I chose to think about it. Because y'all asked me how I got joy out of it, and that's how I found my joy. I said, you know what? To be in the company of Ketanji Brown Jackson, yes, put me there.
Asha. Be subversive.
No, y'all didn't end with the stank face. Is this about how we found joy or not?
Joy in that white man's lazy.
Oh, she went straight for the jugular, just like right at it. Okay, wait a minute before you go. I know you got to go because the archive is about to close. Give us your comment really quick about this whole situation. So you got a husband. Y'all been married for 20 years. If somebody talking out the left side of their mouth, do you want your husband to haul off and hit them?
I don't want that, no. Because, and in particular, I know people are going to drag me for this. And I think Tandi, she's not here, but if she's watching or she goes back and watches, she might drag me for this. Okay, remember, I was just the person who said representation matters to an extent, and that I'm okay with being confused with Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. Especially not another Black man on the world stage. No. Unless Will Smith comes out and says, I've talked to Chris Rock and I've talked to Chris Rock and I've talked to Chris Rock. And I keep telling him, keep my wife's name out of your mouth, and he just won't do it. Which it didn't seem like that was the case. I don't know. I do not know. But, he went from zero to slap you in front of everybody, humiliate you in front of everybody. I know that he felt that that's what Chris Rock was doing to his wife. But I don't know that, but I'm assuming that might be one of his feelings. I don't know, because a part of it seems like it was all about him, but I don't know. No, I do not to directly answer your question, nor do I think he would do that. He doesn't operate like that. And that doesn't mean I don't think that he stands up for the women in his family, including myself, the women and girls in his family. That's not the case. I do feel he does take the position that he should respect and quote unquote, how the saying goes, the aphorism goes, respect and protect Black women. But at the same time, I do think he's careful about thinking through whether, this is a position in which I can advocate for myself, while he kind of, hangs back. And I've seen him do that, hang back and let me, do my thing. Come on in, do my thing for a while. Okay, thank you. But yeah, I got I got the thing. But yeah, I don't think that was handled correctly at all. But I mean, I'm glad it opens up the space for what protection of Black women should look like. Yeah.
So we'll continue the conversation. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Bye bye. You too.
Okay, so Estee, so
I want to hear your response actually first.
You want to hear my response first?
Yeah, because I would love to hear like a personal response, just knowing your politics, and then kind of a professional response. I mean, if you want me to jump in the middle, I have a couple of responses too, but.
Okay, so I think it's a combination of things. So I'm wearing my psychologist hat and my sister hat. I mean, my first thought was actually when I heard it, because I didn't watch the Oscars. When I heard it, I thought it wasn't true. I thought, how rumors get started or whatever. And so I had to ask, because I was like, why would someone do that?
I didn't think it was true until I saw the video, honestly.
Even like I just saw a still shot. I didn't see the actual video, but I just thought people were like joking, Chris Rock is a comedian, and Will Smith, he's kind of had that comedic personality in some ways. And it's just something that's so out of the norm for anyone. And then, like, I don't know another word to say it, that I just was like, I was actually speechless. And so I had to talk. And I think and Jamila was one of the first people that called me. And so we were like, what? What? Okay, so then putting that to the side, I think when we talked about whether or not we were going to discuss this today, as it relates to Black Joy, I mean, I did think about all the disrespect of Judge Jackson. And, even just the commentary around suggesting that she was light on pedophilia and associating with her with pedophiles, which is the most racist and vile thing, because you have this woman that has these impeccable credentials, and then you try to associate her with something that is not associated with Black women. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. Who goes to jail is not on a large scale. I mean, there's lots of things that we get overly incarcerated for, but it's not being a pedophile. And so those kinds of racist attacks had just really taken me over the edge. And I did not watch any of the hearings. It was just that made it on my radar, and that really took me over the edge. And so as I sat back and I thought about it, and I did not know that Jada Pinkett had alopecia. I just recognized that she was wearing her hair short, and I thought it was just, simply by choice. And then to think like this comedian, who one has made a movie about Black hair, and he said that he made that movie about Black hair because his little 3-year-old Black daughter did not like her own hair, to do that and to be on a world stage and knowing all the issues that Black women have around their hair and try to make it as a he joke. And I don't know that he knew that she had alopecia. Don't know. But I do know that he grew up in the Black community and saw it fit to make a movie about Black women and hair because he knows that it's an issue. So I have been bothered that the commentary is on Will Smith. Everybody know that's problematic. That's problematic. That's bizarre. Handle that over here. I think the bigger conversation is, why did you get your ass on stage and say some shit like that? What is going on with you that you would think that that is okay to do? Even as a comedian, even as people say inappropriate stuff and push stuff to the margins and bring up difficult stuff. That was an assault. And for me, it just took it too far to sit here. And again, let me connect these two things. To sit here and have the first Black woman Supreme Court justice to come with these impeccable credentials that are beyond the credentials of the people that sit on the Supreme Court, and you're going to associate her with pedophilia for your own racist, misogynistic, distorted political gain? You're going to do that. And then Chris Rock had to be aware of that. And then on the next week, so now we supposed to be laughing at Black women and their hair issues? Okay, you done took it too damn far.
Yeah, so I think my takeaway is similar in that I'm gonna take it, I think, maybe a step further than what you just said. But I think for me, even beyond Black women, I think specifically the folks who are most impacted by the last 2 weeks of national events were Jada and Ketanji, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not who we're talking about. And so I think that's been my major reaction is, where's the conversation about Jada? Like, who's checking on Jada? Who, hair loss and Black hair and Black women and our hair is such a huge thing. Even the idea, like I just got a haircut yesterday. Now I wear my hair short, but I'm sitting in the chair, like having this whole moment because of the conversation. And I have family members that are dealing with hair loss and that can even be frustrated with me because I got a head full of thick hair and I choose to walk around bald headed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I think there's so much there. And a Black woman who is more qualified than every single Supreme Court justice on the bench right now combined, which statistically they've demonstrated. Like I've literally seen charts of like trial time.
I've seen it too.
She's more qualified than all of them if you add it together. And you're questioning her ability to define words and to explain, determinations made by her children's schools. And, I think the pedophilia was just one among many really, really outlandish connections that were attempted to be made to really create a campaign so that she won't get voted in. And so I think that's been my biggest takeaway. And I haven't commented on it publicly for that reason, because I'm not really interested in being in a conversation about Chris and Will alone. Although I do think there is something at stake there. So to in Jamila's point, there could possibly be history. We don't really know, but I am a consumer of pop culture. I do enjoy pop culture. And so there were comments that were made at the Oscars in 2016 by Chris Rock that went in hard on Jada Pinkett. And so just from some of the context and the body language, it is kind of generally suspected that conversations have been had of like, just leave us out of it. But of course, what that really was, we don't know.
Right.
Also, they've been particularly targeted just by around lifestyle choices and a whole bunch of other things. And part of winning an Oscar is that you have to campaign for it. So they've had to be in the public eye. And I'm sure that has impacted Will's mental emotional state. I think the other thing that's complex about this is it's violent, whether we say it or whether we do it. It's still violent. And so
Mhm.
I think to construe Will as the only violent party is harmful and incomplete, and I think lazy too. Um, the other thing that I want to add to it that makes it more complex is behind the scenes, because I actually watched this morning in preparation for today because I hadn't really gotten deep into the weeds with
Mhm.
it. But I watched the Good Morning America interview with Will Packer, who was the first Black man to produce the Oscars, which was a milestone kind of thing. And he painted this picture, and I mean, I think he's telling the truth, but he painted this picture that after it happened, Chris Rock, it really kind of advocated for Will Smith to be able to stay and receive his award because the LAPD was about to remove him and arrest him, and it was about to be a whole thing. So there are like all of these complexities at stake and how it all happened. And so I think it for me really is reflective about Black folks and relationships, and what we're willing to prioritize and what we're not willing to prioritize. And I think at the end of the day, we should be prioritizing Jada and Kenji. That's just
Well, and I love that you say that. I've tried to be like really careful with that because I don't want to. So there's a couple of things. I don't want to paint her as a victim, but I do think that the focus needs to be on her. So I've heard a couple of people say it, but most people aren't focused on that. And I've seen like all these comments. So like some actress, because I don't keep up with pop culture. So some white woman actress was like,
Amy
making
Schumer
some
who said
comment.
she was traumatized.
No, someone talking about this isn't the hood, making comments like that. And then this other fool saying that he could have killed him. I mean, it's like all the racialized tropes coming out and those things being focused on, Will Smith. And again, I think you use the perfect term. Whether it's verbal or it's physical, it's violence. And it's why I keep going back to even Judge Katanji is, again, I wasn't looking at it, I wasn't seeing it, I was just getting snippets and it felt violent. And I knew that there was a lot of stuff that was happening. I'm just saying the comment about the pedophilia, and I know in terms of like if you look at who is going, it's a federal crime,
Mhm.
and who is going to jail for that federal crime, they don't, those folks, those criminals don't look like Judge Katanji. And so to attempt to associate her with that, it pulls on this trope that even when we reach the heights that we are criminals, number one, and it is another form of violence. And that violence most impacts her and her daughter and her husband and their family members and her loved ones. It most impacts her because the violence was happening towards her, but then it also has this ripple effect to a larger community of Black women, of Black folks in general, of people of color in general, who, no matter what we do, are looked at as suspicious. And so so for this piece of violence to be part of the conversation and not the other piece of violence, Chris Rock coming out his mouth and saying that stuff at the same time. And I don't remember if it's the same week, because I think earlier in the week or the week before, then Congress just passed the Crown Act, and we don't know what the Senate's going to do. So hair is such an issue in this country for Black people that you got to pass flipping laws to say that people can't be discriminated against because of the stuff that's coming out of their body that God made. But you're gonna make a joke out of it? That's violent.
Mm-hmm. Which is the other thing that is interesting, I think, particularly around you know, the choice to even do it. Because the other part of that again, just I think adds to the complexity, because we don't really know. But that adds to the complexity is these weren't rehearsed jokes. So the jokes are scripted and rehearsed and all of that good thing. And he did
Wait, they weren't rehearsed, or they are rehearsed?
They are rehearsed.
Okay.
That joke was not.
Oh.
You understand? So like he had to come to rehearsal with his script. He rehearsed his script. He got on stage and didn't follow the script completely. And that joke was not a part of the original script. So there's also a component where he just decided to go for it against the rules. Against, you know what I'm saying, against proper protocol, right? But so so I mean, it's a lot of layers there. I think the other thing that I really want to name too is respectability, right? Because I think there's a huge part of the conversation for Black folks that is centered around this happening on an international stage and all of this kind of stuff. And I just don't think we would care if this happened at the cookout. And the only difference is the audience.
Well, and that's what I was saying. I said it to like two of my girlfriends. I said at some point people are upset because I do think that it was very bizarre to do that when you're on national television, to make that choice. But at the same time, I think some of those people that would have been upset because this was a comment about someone's wife who has an illness. I think if it had been at the after party or whatever they do after the Oscars and stuff, I don't think it would have been people would have said, well, yeah, they got into a shoving match and, you know, there was this flying or whatever. But I don't think it would have been as seen as such a big deal. And for me, and I said I didn't want to talk about this, and we spent all this time talking about this because I'm not in. I ain't got no Oscar. You know,
ain't going.
I'm not going to the Oscars, not to the after party. I don't care what people are wearing. Now, Jada's dress was looking fly because you know I love me some fashion. The dress was fly.
It was
on that. Yeah, I mean in the green and the
it was.
You know. But I mean, there's been so much commentary, like people, and I'm glad that in our conversation we're not doing this. People are like making commentary about like what was going on in people's heads and stuff like that. I don't know them people. I don't make $20 million a movie.
Yeah, I think this comes down to relationships. I really do. I think it comes down to relationships. I think it comes down to political relationships. I think it comes down to our relationship to what we do that we feel like is viewed outside of the Black house, meaning all of our like what we do outside and what we do at home. I think that it comes down to those kinds of career professional relationships in Hollywood. Like clearly there's something at play with Chris Rock and Will Smith. Who knows what it is? I have no idea. I think there was some other stuff in that moment, which is why I mentioned it. I don't think that that was just a slap for Chris. I think it was a slap for a few other folks. But I also think it comes down to our relationship with ourselves. I saw a lot of people who made comments about the fact that Will laughed first before he reacted, and that Jada laughed after Will slapped Chris Rock. And it's like, I've had my body betray me so many times in an uncomfortable situation. Laughter to me gives no indication of a true feeling and reaction. And the idea that we think that, especially when you know you're on an international stage, doesn't really make a lot of sense. So like our clarity about our relationship to ourselves in that way has really been baffling to me just in the conversation. And I think the other thing relationship wise is we talk about folks who married, you know what I'm saying? Like when he looked in her face after this man has put your medical condition of losing your hair on stage for people to consume and laugh at you. That's the first person that saw all the tears, that saw whatever you went through to avoid it, to prevent it, to stop it, to remedy it. That's the person that knows the first time you went bald in public, that knows what happened and what you were thinking when you tried it, but you ended up crying in the bathroom and you like all of that. I'm making that up, but what I'm saying is I'm making up that scenario, but what I'm saying is there's so many nuances that happen in a life partnership kind of relationship and the vulnerability that you're in proximity to. I want to hit a person too. No way. Let me tell you something. You put an alopecia. All these priests and reverends, all these pastors, all these sisters, they're gonna get laid down. Now I might meet you on the side of the stage. I might put, you know what I'm saying? Like I might navigate it differently. But somebody like you, of course he reacted.
And I think that's, oh gosh, you said so much there. And we're going to talk about joy. We're going to get to that. But just the idea of your body betraying you. I can't tell you the number of times that I've laughed in an inappropriate situation. And I did not mean to laugh.
And it wasn't funny to me. That's so
It wasn't funny, but it was just like a natural, it's like somebody tripping and you laugh at them and you don't mean to laugh. You don't mean any harm to them. Yeah, and people not getting that. And I don't know, like I said, I didn't see the video. That's not where my interest was lying. But I mean, I do wonder about like Jada and her struggles with hair loss. I mean, you're dealing with this autoimmune disorder. You're dealing with the way that they've chosen to kind of navigate in their lives, and people judge them in terms of their relationship, in terms of, you know, her, what she said, situations or outside relationships and their open marriage and these things. That's a lot that's there.
That's laid on the body.
And so then I don't like, you know, I don't think we have the right to be commenting on that. And the other thing, one of my friends said, and I didn't hear anybody else say this, Will Smith has been famous since he was 17 years old. That's a long ass time. His entire adult life, he has been famous. You move through the world very differently.
I hadn't thought of that. What someone did say that made me reflect, which is I think adjacent to that point, is that Will Smith has never had a scandal like this. Like he's never a person that is acted in or behaved in a way that anybody would question, which is why it happened. So when I was watching Good Morning America this morning, Will Packer was like, Will Smith went on stage. It didn't even occur to people to stop him because they assumed that whatever was happening, because it was him, was legit. It wasn't even privilege, which is kind of what I assumed. It wasn't even privilege. It was assumption based on track record. And because Chris was already off script, they assumed that maybe they had agreed to something, that maybe they had, you know what I'm saying? Like that they had decided to do some kind of bid or skit or whatever. They weren't even sure that he had actually hit Chris until after he came off stage. Because of how it happened. Nobody even knew that Will was actually mad until he started cussing. Which for some people was, you know, more of the offense than the physical offense. I mean, you know, it's a whole lot of opinions about it. But I think
what did he say that the more the offense was that he started cursing and saying, keep my wife?
I heard that comment because I think people have different levels of tolerance and exposure to physical violence. And so I think people have different reactions to that. But he was like, you know, he was kind of cussing and you know, yelling back at him from the audience. So I've even heard the reaction that was more disruptive than, like, that maybe if he had just hit him that they could have gone on and not known that it wasn't fake, or not known that it wasn't a skit. But his reaction from the chair is what then shifted everything, if that makes sense. Because people assumed that it was a joke. Initially, people assumed that it was a joke because of track record, because of who was involved, because it's two black men on stage that are comedians. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm like, it's so complex. There are all these layers. So initially, people weren't sure. I mean, and even for me, which is why I was like, I didn't really, my partner brought it to me and was like, wake up. Because I wasn't watching either. Like, they go the Oscar, honey, you want to see this? I was like, what do you mean? It's a joke, right? Like, it's a joke. And so the people in the room were having the same experience. Like, Will Smith has been known to prank people, Chris Rock, so everybody's kind of bewildered and confused about what's happening. So so in a way, his cursing was the thing that actually made people aware that it had been a violent moment.
Okay. I just think and I think that that's kind of a cultural thing, because I mean, from what and again, I didn't listen to the video, what I was reading in quotes, he said, keep my wife's name out your effing mouth.
Mm-hmm. I'm saying until that moment.
No, I got you, but I'm like, well, why are people? I done heard. Ain't you heard that people say stuff like that before? Like, what?
I almost repeated it just at the imagination of somebody saying that about Brenda Shaker. So I promise you, I understand. Which is why I'm like, if this had happened at the cookout,
that's what I said. Afterwards,
none of this is new Negro behavior. I mean, I know we want to. I know we want to act like our laundry them and put outside on the clothesline, but this ain't new behavior. Like, we upset because white people was there, and they have their own behaviors that are just as ugly.
Well, and I'm saying I'm not upset, and I haven't heard. I mean, I've heard a couple of people say that, but I haven't heard a lot of people say that.
I think on the pop culture side, that's been the main thing.
Oh, well,
in Black Hollywood, we don't act this way. We don't do, you know what I mean? Like, I've consumed kind of all pieces of it just because I've been interested to hear what people were saying.
They don't act that way. They ain't heard nobody say, okay, stop.
They mean
that's that respectability problem.
That's what I'm saying. They mean we don't act that way in front
of
the white people.
And so then, to me, that is where, kind of shifting into that idea of joy, that is where you start to give up your ability to have joy and find joy even in difficult situations, because you're allowing other people to define what it is that you should be doing.
I mean, I think it's bigger than definition. It's identity. Like, your identity is found in somebody else's assessment and interpretation, which is what I thought you were speaking to earlier. Because the other thing that's happening is these white women walk around talking about they're traumatized, right? You're not traumatized. Like, that's not an appropriate and educated.
Oh, girl, I don't even pay no attention to that. I don't even know why you brought that up. Next.
But I do feel like it's important to name because yeah, like that's white tears behavior, absolutely. And it's if our identity can then get wrapped up in this kind of preoccupation with this impact on people that's not even ourselves.
And I'm not necessarily, and again, I mean, at the beginning, I was like, okay, so it's bizarre. I can't even, there's nothing I can do with that because that is over there. And so then for people to say they're traumatized, I'm certainly looking at this, I wasn't feeling traumatized. I was confused.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you do that? But then for me, this is the answer to your question about, as a psychologist.
Okay.
What it told me was there is a whole bunch there that I don't understand. Mm-hmm. Because that is not who how we have consumed him over the years how he has presented. You remember now? You too young to remember. So, first rap Grammy goes to Will Smith. See, I'm just mad that I had to say this, and you like,
I'm not, no. I do remember that. I was little, but I remember it. I'm
no, I'm saying the fact that you can say I was little.
I'm like, nah, don't come for me completely.
And then, his whole thing of like everybody was kind of, you had like the tensions with gangster rap at the time, and he was all about like doing hip hop that was positive
and not cursing.
And not cursing. That was a really big thing. That he wasn't cursing. And so he's had this particular image that he's cultivated, and he's always kind of doing kind of like positive thoughts, almost like a positive psychology kind of way of moving through the world. And so what I know as a psychologist is I don't see all the behind the scenes stuff, but this is the way that this guy is cultivating who he wants to present to the world. And at this moment, when this thing occurs and he does something that is so drastically different and culturally inconsistent with what most people would do, I know that there's a larger issue there. And so that's why I'm saying I pull myself out of the conversation, because I don't know what's going on there.
I also do consume Red Table Talk, and
I've seen like one or two. So,
yeah, so I wouldn't say I've seen all of them, but I've probably seen 60%. I've probably seen but let's say 50%. I've probably seen 50% of them. And so I think what I know from watching that is that like they are people who absolutely have therapists and spiritualists. And I've even seen footage of him working with some well-known spiritual thought leaders and things like that. And so in that, what I've heard him be clear about is he has been intentional about cultivating this image. And he's now at a place where he's really trying to uproot and name all of his shit. You know what I'm saying? And so I think for me, it just felt like a very human moment, because it felt like, oh, it's all kind of, because I mean, the first thing in therapy, I feel like I tell people this, especially clients, because even when we're doing spiritual work, it's always great if it's coupled with clinical work alongside it. And, the first thing that's going to happen in therapy is that you're going to dig up a bunch of stuff. That's going to happen first. And it may last for years. It may take years. I mean, I lied in therapy my first probably 2 years. I was just telling lies.
You the clients that I don't like. I'm like, what you sitting here like wasting my damn time?
I was lying. It was helpful for me because I have been
taught for you to lie.
It was because I had been taught to mistrust therapy, and I didn't know anybody that was going to therapy. You know what I'm saying? I'm a Black girl from Macon, Georgia. I started going to therapy when I was 18. I didn't know anybody like this. There was no therapy culture. Like we talk about it in my environment, at least in my age group. All of my folks have at least been right, but like. I didn't know anybody that had been to therapy except for my aunt who had a substance abuse problem, and she had gone for a short term because it was ordered. Like I didn't have a context for it. I had heard the word depression. Like I didn't have any of that. And so I didn't trust knowing that my thoughts were being recorded, and that and I was trying to navigate, was this a personal relationship or was it a professional one? And what did confidentiality mean? And I was lying to myself. I was, you know what I'm saying? Like, so all of that was happening. And so for me, that was the process I had to navigate to get to a different place of showing up differently. So for me, it was beneficial because I couldn't have gotten to that place without playing it out that way. I think if I had waited until 30, I would have done the same thing because I just didn't trust it. And I didn't have a point of reference to know how to trust it. And I didn't trust myself in it. But Go ahead. I
No,
want
I was gonna say you said something. Let me just say this really quick. You just said something that's really interesting to me because you were saying you didn't know, like thinking that my thoughts are being recorded and about the confidentiality. And it's so interesting to me because people bring those things up in therapy. And one of the things that I tell people is, when's the last time that you heard about a therapist like revealing somebody's secrets? Like, so I'm asking you, when's the last time?
I've never heard of it, but I don't think that's the point.
No,
What
no, I know, but
that's
stay with,
unclear.
huh? No,
That's
no, no.
unclear.
I know. But
Okay.
this is how I kind of address it with people. So I'll ask
Yeah.
that, and they were like,
I've never heard of
"Never.
it.
I've
I've never heard of
never heard that." And I was like, "Well, one of the things that you got to recognize is that so it's a reasonable thing to have a fear about, and I think it has become like this urban legend, like it's,
it.
like Chucky or something, so you don't want any little dolls with chopped off hair that look kind of weird, little white boy dolls, because you don't know what's gonna happen. Or if you say Candyman 3 times or something like that, and you just don't know what's going to happen. And so people have this fear. And then I literally say, it's like, when's the last time you heard that? And it's like, I never heard that. And then so I just like tell them, well, there's federal laws, like there's federal and state laws that prevent us from sharing your information. And they're like, oh, really? Yeah. And so if a therapist did that, you essentially mean, okay, so I got 3 therapy degrees. So I got a PhD, a EDS, and a master's degree. So it took me 9 years to get 3 degrees. So what you're saying is essentially, I'm going to take all that 9 years of education, all the work that I had to do, all the money that I had to spend.
Just to tell your business.
I'm gonna tell you something. You ain't that special.
Right. I mean, I while we are not bound in the same ways, and I do know of practitioners that don't have the same level of discretion that I practice. Um, I feel the same way, but I think because it's so monumental to you, you can't imagine it not being big. It's just big. It's like the hugeness of it is as real as the experience. And I feel like I spend a lot of time in coaching sessions and in readings and all kinds of things, just affirming people that like, hey, this is a human experience. And I think that is important because it's one of the first things that you have to learn to dismantle is to see your flaws and your struggles and your pitfalls even as just human. Which is, back to it, which is what I just said about Will. Like, it just felt like, bless his heart. Like that was my honest reaction of like, oh, you know what I mean? This is him having a human moment, and his humanity is meeting Chris's humanity, who is decided to show up in this violent way. Now he's got a violent response. This woman's health is now at stake, even in conversation with many ways that she isn't a victim. It's just really, really complex. And I think to the point of joy, I actually think those are the windows to joy. I think we have to be willing to be deeply human. We have to be willing to be deeply vulnerable to really have joy that is deep, to have a way of creating a way of being for ourselves in the world. Like, to the same conversation, therapy for me has been an essential way of creating joy, but it took, I don't know, probably a decade of therapy to get there. Because it did take time for me to be willing. Joy is risky in certain ways. It's not always even safe to feel joy in your body. And to believe that you can have joy and the other shoe isn't gonna drop, or that something else isn't going to go wrong, or that you haven't misjudged the situation.
Or that you can handle it, even if the other shoe drops, that you'll be able to, you have the resources to be able to handle it,
and that you don't have to lose your joy in that process, that two things can exist at one time, that you can have joy and abundance and and a disaster can occur, and you can still hold the other thing up. And so I think they definitely relate.
And I think one of the things that I've realized just through this pandemic, I mean, there have been difficult spaces, but there's also been a lot of blessings, lots of blessings that have happened. And the thing that begun to realize is that I don't have to always be in a state of anxiety and panic.
Mm-hmm.
That I can cultivate a space of trust, and that opens up these like windows for joy, for happiness to come through, and just to even recognize that I have the right to pleasure. That's a whole other thing. I don't know if you saw the thing that I sent. I'm like, yeah, okay, so we need to talk about this. um yeah, I mean, because I mean, just when I think about Jada and what it must mean to go through hair loss, I can't even imagine. Because like you see, I got long hair. I had my hair shaved off in 2017, and it's grown back. I mean, I cut it again, and so I can just do whatever I want, and I don't take that for granted. Um, because I grew up in this world of Black women where there are these kind of uncomfortable conversations about my hair because of the struggles that Black women have had with their own hair. And to me, that goes back to kind of this point that I keep trying to make about Chris Rock is he grew up in this world. He's not a Black woman, but he grew up around Black women and made this whole movie. And so he knows that this is a struggle. And it's certain things. We make jokes about all kinds of stuff. We go back and forth, and that's just kind of part of kind of a cultural thing. Me and my colleagues joke back and forth about some of us have iPhones and some of us have Androids. And so anything that goes on, I don't know if you had that like little thing, we go back and forth. And particularly because I had the computer problems earlier, they'd probably be like, that's because you're on that damn Mac or something. That's cool. I mean, and those are the ways that you kind of just find laughter in little spaces. But in that, you and I both know there's a space, even when we are joking, where you just don't go.
Yep. It was violent. I mean, there's just it was violent. And for me, whether he actually knew that she had alopecia or not is actually irrelevant, because you know what's at stake. You know what's at stake. And because of whatever y'all got going on, above board or below board, I don't know. Whatever y'all got going on, Chris, you felt like you could go there. Or you wanted to go there. You chose to go there. So, sometimes there are consequences for those kinds of quick choices that we make with where we go when we know we shouldn't. Which is why I am glad that he created space for Will to not be thrown out, but I'm also not gonna call him a hero for that, which is some of what's being said. But
I think that's going too far. See, okay, so here's a perfect example. Because Alethea asked, and she got them tender Christian ears, and so she got so Alethea asked, go sit up here and do hashtag Team Android. So as I was talking, so I had to put bye girl.
Yeah, absolutely. No. We are an Apple house. Yes.
But that's my whole point. It's like, I think that's a good example. So thank you, Alethea, for doing that. That's a great example of how, like, you're just finding little things, pick each other about, and like even
Yeah.
when it's like really uncomfortable. Oh, I'm late. My computer's not working. Oh, because you on that damn Mac again, huh? That's
Yeah,
what your problem is.
absolutely.
And something like that.
Yeah.
But there are certain things, we don't talk about nobody mama now. That's just
Them fighting words. Them fighting words. And you chose to say fighting words on the international stage.
And those are, I mean, actually, when you think about that more, so when you talk about somebody woman,
Mm-hmm.
and all the kind of like bald-headed jokes
Mm-hmm.
that people would say when they were little, so you done combine those two things, and that's the mother of his children. That's too much. That's not funny. That's not where you find joy. And if that's where you need to find your joy, by being violent to someone else, then I think that's a huge problem for you.
The other thing that disturbs me is that you invited white folks into this joy with you. That bothers me. Because maybe if you wanted to say that joke to yourself at your house in the comfort of you, like, it's different when you have the power dynamic of putting this out for public consumption, and then public consumption that is, you know what I'm saying? Like, that is white folks. Like,
but is that respect that when thinking that, doesn't that engage that respectability politics? Like, we shouldn't be acting this way.
I thought about that critique, but I don't know if it's about acting so much as thinking about what's at stake, right? Like, I'm not saying that the fact that white people were there means that he should have invited the reaction that he got. I'm saying that
motion at your floodlight cam.
Are you thinking about what's at stake and how that reinforces all of these other tropes and stereotypes and all of these other things for them to laugh at? That's how it feels for me. I also think that it was interesting because some of the jokes that he told about other people were not personal. It wasn't about their bodies. And so I think watching the footage for me was also something that stuck out to me, is that you can come for a Black woman's body, but you ain't come for this Latina woman's body. You didn't come for this white woman's body. You didn't come for this white man's body. You know what I'm saying? Like, so even other jokes that were off script, the fact that a Black woman's body is low hanging fruit. So I think yeah.
So Alethea said, I know we gotta go. Alethea said he suffers from nonverbal social disorder. I saw that. I don't know what that is because it ain't in the DSM. So I love how people like they'll whip out something like, oh, this person suffers with such and such, and I was like, you know, you can't go to the psychologist to get diagnosed with that. She said that he literally can't read the room, so maybe he couldn't read the room. So even if he couldn't read the room, again, it goes back to what I was saying before.
I don't think how it relates to you being able to talk about a Black woman's body. I mean, yeah. So I think that, and I think it's bigger than Chris Rock. So I'm not here to hang him for that, because I think that it's a culture of consuming, contesting, and ostracizing the Black woman's body for consumption in a way that other female bodies, other bodies of color, other bodies, period, are not vulnerable. So for me, it still comes down to Jada and Ketanji.
So I'm looking at what Alethea is saying, because so a nonverbal social disorder would kind of fall in this category, though it wouldn't be called nonverbal social disorder. So she's saying that they're saying that Chris Rock is on this the autism spectrum.
I'm still confused about what that has to do.
Oh, okay. If he is, which if someone is on the autism spectrum, which I'm not saying that he is, so this is a good thing. I'm gonna ask Dr. Maddox. He doesn't come off as someone on the autism spectrum. But I have not paid attention to him, and I never sat across from him. But let's say that he does, which would make it would be very hard to be a comedian and be on the autism spectrum. But let's, for the sake of argument, say that he is on the autism spectrum, that he wouldn't get that was inappropriate. Because people on the autism spectrum don't understand social and emotional cues. And so they wouldn't get that joke was inappropriate. But they also usually don't get jokes and usually can't deliver jokes appropriately and deliver the punchlines. So let's just say that was true. Let's
Then
take
if
it
that
out.
was true, I think what I'm saying is still stands, because then why isn't the same thing done with other bodies?
He wouldn't be able to process all that. So I'm not saying that is true in this case.
Okay.
That would be very bizarre, but it makes me think like, oh, I'm gonna talk to my colleague that specializes in autism to see what he thinks, and it's gonna make me look at him more. But so I'm saying you can't apply it to the situation, because I think that there's a lot that's going on there. But taking him out of the situation, someone with autism typically can't deliver jokes. They don't understand social cues. They don't understand what would hurt. They don't understand what would be if in the moment they're doing something, they may not understand it isn't inappropriate until you tell them it's inappropriate.
Got it.
Yeah. And so in theory, applying that, if it were true in that situation, him getting hit would let him know, don't ever do that again. It wouldn't come beforehand. But like I said, that's to me, that's a reach for him to be a comedian. But I don't know. We'll come back to that. I'll have an answer for y'all the next time we come. Because we see a lot of people. We can't, as psychologists, if we don't sit across from somebody and actually see them as a client, we can't officially diagnose them. But there's still stuff that you can see, like that orange thing that used to be president. Like you can clearly see what's going on with him and diagnostically. You can clearly see what's going on with Kanye diagnostically. There's lots of folks that you can see, okay, there's something wrong here. That would explain why he would do something like that. But again, that is kind of one of the ways that you actually diagnose someone with autism, is whether or not they understand jokes, and they usually don't understand jokes. And even if they can say them, they may be able to say the joke and say the punchline. It's not going to be from a comedic perspective, and they're not going to say, I wish I could remember. I was like actually seeing somebody a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, oh, I'm going to tell you a joke. It's inappropriate. And I was like, okay, well, tell me the joke. And it was so like out of the box inappropriate.
It wasn't funny.
It wasn't funny at all. And I erased that out of my mind. So I literally don't remember what it was, but it's something that was so horrendous. Like you should never repeat that. And so this person heard this joke and they just repeated the joke, and without getting like, even though he's saying it's inappropriate, he's not getting like, that's not something you ever repeat to any other human being. Yeah. So now you got me on some homework. So that's my homework for next time.
Yeah.
Okay, let's close out. Let's do tell me let's do each three things that bring us joy.
Belly laughs.
Oh, yes.
I'm a drinker, so cocktails bring me joy. A particular kind of joy that is just
that's hilarious. I'm not a drinker, so cocktails would never bring me joy. Liquor does not bring me joy.
Yeah, like I don't need nobody. I don't have to be outside. Like a well-crafted cocktail. A well-crafted cocktail brings me joy. It does. It brings me joy. I'm also a foodie, so it probably goes in that same category, but I will take the cocktail first. Um, but I think my third thing would probably be a good cleansing bath. You know, because I think there are ways that it's spiritual care and self care and all that kind of stuff, but it genuinely brings me joy. Like that feeling on the other side of the bath when you like stand up and it's like, and you get to like wrap yourself in the towel. You know what I mean? Like there's a joy. there's a there's a joy. There's a joy. Oh my goodness. So that's my three.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna steal that. Like I have this jet tub that I love. I love it so much, and then I make all kinds of bath and body kind of stuff. You name it, I make it. And so I got like my whole little thing, and I don't have to like skimp on it. You know how like when you go buy it in the store, it's expensive, but I'll have like big jars of all this stuff. And I had to tell myself one day because I love being in that jet tub and doing my whole little routine so much. And like and at first I was like, oh well, I can't get in the jet tub every day. And then I was like, well,
Wow.
why can't
It's your tub in your house. Why can't you do that?
I? It felt like such a treat. Like it was like something that I should not do every day. I had to get over that. So that
Yeah.
massage, spa, going any kind of spa kind of thing, that's my thing.
Mhm.
Listening to good audiobooks.
That is your thing.
Yeah. Being out in nature, all that kind of stuff. I could go on and on. I got all kinds of stuff that just make me happy. Oh, and cooking. When I have like the ingredients to do like
You got it.
that's my stuff.
Yeah, and you do, and the food tastes like joy, which is what brings
Mm.
me joy.
Mm.
It
And
does.
then particularly in those moments, like remember the time you brought that cake, girl, we gotta go. You brought that cake to my house, and everybody was like, it felt like the ancestors showed up.
Oh, I forgot about that.
That pound cake, like when you just had it right, and it just, and they just come and they talk and they like put this in it, not stir it a little bit
A
like
little less of
that.
that. Yeah, stop right there. Yeah.
Woo! That made me think of like, oh, what am I gonna cook now?
Right. Yeah. That's the only time I cook. I cook with and for them. Other than that, it's because my spouse made me. It's the
All right, girl. Look,
yeah.
we was like, oh, we may stop early. We was
I
way over
know.
time.
You probably you
And I said, oh, we don't go talk about Will and them 5 minutes. And look, I guess there was a lot
55
to
minutes.
unpack there.
Yes, it was 55. In fact, but
A lot
you
to
know,
unpack there. So we'll
it's
see
a
you
lot
next
to
month.
unpack there. Yeah, so we'll see. I'm interested to know your homework, so we'll see. But
Yeah, I'm
I wish
gonna
I wish
check. Now
we
you
would
got
do it.
me thinking, because we end up doing that a lot, actually from a teaching perspective, and maybe one day I'll do a whole session on that. So for students, particularly celebrities are great places, great kind of examples to teach
Mhm.
people about a diagnosis, particularly if you're like really clear about a diagnosis, because there's oftentimes the celebrity will have you looking over here and thinking, oh, that's normal behavior, and dismissing what you're seeing right in front of you. So yeah. Um, but yeah, this was gonna be hard for me to believe that that's actually true, but we'll see. So I'll let y'all know next time. So I will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, everybody. Let's see.